Hello, everyone. Just wait for people to log in. I see some people are just starting to get in. Now, hopefully, I just have to. Looks like we have two people. Oh, Judy's here from British Columbia. Welcome, Judy. She says good morning. It's afternoon here in Ontario. I'm just a little rusty with my streaming. It's been a few months since I did this class by myself. Can everyone hear me? If there's an issue with the audio, let me know. Okay. All right, well, welcome everybody. This is a demonstration using the Studio Light fiber brush markers, which you can see here. I know there was a special just before Christmas where you would get all sets of the markers, and there are 8 in total. And so I have the set, but there's also a stamp set that I believe went with the markers, or you could purchase separately. Now, unfortunately, I do not have that stamp set. There was some confusion, but I think the demonstration will show you techniques and just choose to use stamps that you might have. Um, I'm going to show you a bunch of techniques. After playing with these markers over the last few days, I think there needs to be a part two. So I think part two will happen maybe beginning of March. I have to do a Facebook Live for HSN in the US using marker sets. So I'll have a little more time to play with them. So let's get started. I see there's a lot of people who are here. We have several people. So good morning, good afternoon, um, wherever you are and whatever the time zone is. Um, we're gonna I'm gonna flip to my overhead camera and then we'll get started. If you have questions, put it in the chat. I'll try and stop every now and again and check out for questions. All right. So let's see here. So unfortunately, I used to use my phone as a camera, but that wasn't working this morning, so I had to flip over to this other camera, which kind of has a curve to it. Anyway, I'm sure we can make do. So I am working on the Lisa Horton Ultimate 2. This is her silicone mat. It's similar to the Ultimate 1, which has the plastic lid that you can use as a stamping tool as well. But the reason I'm using it because of the silicone mat, and that helps hold your paper in place, but also I can use it and add some colored marker to the pad, which will then I can add some water to it. Okay, that's better. Okay, so these markers, I have a selection here in a cup, They do recommend that you keep them upright. So store them upright. And then they have 2 tips. You have the brush tip, which is what we're going to use primarily this afternoon. And there is a bullet point tip, which looks like this on the other end. So you have 2 options for coloring. They are water-based markers, and therefore they react with water. And that's what gives you the watercolor effect. Now, when you use water on your paper, watercolor paper works the best. So I'm going to show you the differences with watercolor paper. So this small piece is not watercolor paper. This is the usual cardstock that I would use. And then this, the off-white, if you can see it, it's a little off-white. That's Strathmore watercolor paper. And then this one at the bottom is a Prism watercolor paper by Hunky Dory. Um, they do seem to react differently, so I'm going to show you how they work. So I've put a little bit of the blue color onto each of the paper, and I am then going to add some water. So just before we get started, Debbie question, which end do you keep upright? I like to have the brush tip down. So that allows me to see my colors because the bullet tip has the color on the end of it. And that's how I'm going to use them primarily. So good question. Now to add some water, I'm using a water brush. At Ecstasy Crafts, there are several water brush selections. They're all basically the same. Some have a small, medium, and large tip. Others have more than one um, brush together. This happens to be the Cosmic Shimmer set. It's just what I had available to use. This set comes with 2 of the water brushes and then a little spray bottle. So this has a little spray tip so I can use it to mist my cardstock if that's what I wanted to do. So that's that set. That's just what I'm using today, but I think most of the water brushes are similar. They work all the same. Halfway up there, you can just unscrew the water brush from the water reservoir, and you can fill it when you need to. I'm just gonna put that back on, and we're ready to go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the regular paper. So this is my regular paper. This is quite heavy cardstock. It's 320 pounds, I guess. And so I'm just going to rub water over it. You can see, it's not that close, but you can see that there really isn't any reaction. A little bit, but not the way we want the water markers to work or the water-based markers. Now I'm going to use the whiter of the 2 watercolor papers. And soon as I add some water, you can see I'm reacting with the ink that's there, and it's starting to spread out. So this was dry ink, and you can see how I'm able to blend that out. Now I'm going to use the other watercolor paper. And again, I'm just going to add a little bit of water. And I don't know if you see this, but this one reacts really well. So there is a difference in the watercolor paper, and that may impact your ultimate results. Most of my samples I made with the whiter color watercolor paper. However, just before coming on air, I stamped some designs on the Strathmore paper. So I'll try that with some of our demos today. But you can see the difference, right? So you can use your markers on regular paper just as a layering technique. But if you really want to get the most out of them, you should use some watercolor paper. All right, so that's that demo. Now, I'm just going to show you the stamps that I do have. So this is a sample that I actually finished, and this is from a Studio Light stamp set, and it's SLES stamp 119. The stamp set, if you chose to purchase it along with the marker set, is also the Studio Light stamp. And what I like about the Studio Light stamps is that they have colored images that you can use to copy. So this is the image from this example. I didn't use quite the same coloring because I actually didn't follow the image at the time I made it, but it gives you ideas. And that's what we're going to use today um, for our samples. So if you're following along, then have your stamp set. It's on the back of the packaging, and you will get an idea of how you might color or what colors to choose. Now, there's another stamp set that I'm going to use for some of the demo, and this is stamp the SL Studio Light ES and then stamp 118. And again, it has all the images and colored examples for you. And then I also have this stamp set. And this is the same SLES, is the standard Studio Light stamp numbering system or lettering system. And this is stamp 59. And this is tulips. I like tulips. So I had this from last year, but there are still some available on the website if you like that stamp set. So that's what we're going to use. And I thought I would start. This is the white color water card. And we're going to start with that. And I'm going to choose some colors. Oh, let me have it here. I'm not going to do it like the example because I'm trying to show you different techniques. And by having it all on the same stamp, you can see the differences. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose some colors. So choose some colors that you want to use. I'm going to choose, I think, some pinks. And the markers, it's actually a good idea to make a little set or identifier so you know what the colors look like when you use them. But because you're going to use water, you can change the color to anything. It can make lighter, like you can get a medium shade, a dark shade, or a very light shade. And you can also blend these markers. So I'm going to choose these colors, and I'm going to start with a darker color because I want to show you just some of the techniques. And so we're going to start with darker. And all I'm going to do is color with the brush. So it's best to hold it on an angle. And I'm just going to brush in one of the petals. So this is the actual color. So you can see that's how it would color. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to add a little bit of water to another one of the petals, and you will see that it turns a little bit lighter. This has a little bit of blue on it. So that's it. If so, the water brush. I'm gonna let me hold something underneath. Um, the water brush tip is white. However, there was still a little bit of blue from the initial demo using the different papers. So all you have to do to get rid of that is have a tissue and wipe it off. So now I'm going to just wet my paper, just the area that I'm going to color. And you don't need a lot of water. It's hard to see, but the more water you add, the lighter the color will be. Once you add a little bit of water, the markers really glide nicely because it just seems to move easier. So you can see between the two, one is lighter. Now you can go back in and add a little bit more if you want. I'm just gonna add a little bit more around the edge, and it will blend with the water that's already on your paper. The other thing I learned about using these markers is that you need to have some patience. Oh, I just looking at my comments, and Pat asked, "What ink do you use to stamp the image?" Thanks for reminding me. So because we're using water, we need to use an ink that will not react to water. So I use to stamp my images the VersaFine pigment ink. There's VersaClair, it's the same, but basically you need ink that doesn't react with water. Thank you for making sure we went over that. So I was saying that you do need patience because in order to do some of the techniques with watercolor, you need to let things dry in between. And this is water. It's not like alcohol, which dries very quickly. So this takes a little bit longer. All right. Now we're going to move to the next petal. And this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of water to my paper. I'm just going to do half. And then I'm going to add some color. And then I can take my water brush again, and I can try and spread it out. So this will just take it and make it lighter. So that's if you want a sort of a gradient. I'm gonna try on this side again. And the other thing, maybe I'll try on the other side, is I'm gonna add a little bit of the color to my silicone mat. And now I'm gonna take my water brush and I'm gonna dip it in, and I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna just go right up, and you can see you get that gradient. So it goes from dark to light. So that's how you can get that kind of shading. I'm gonna add the same over here. And you can keep going at the base. So I'm just gonna hold this up a little bit. So you can see you can go from dark to light. So again, that's very, very subtle shading. But the easiest way to do that is just with your water brush. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit more. So this might be a good way to color in leaves or a stem where you want it shaded on one side. So the next thing that you can also do is I'm just looking for a few things here. I'm just going to wipe off my ink here, and we're gonna do a little bit of blue. So I'm just using this is a it's a stamp chamois from Nelly. You can see it's well loved with all the inks on it, but it works great to just wipe off my silicone mat. So I thought what we would do now is show you how to use I'm gonna do blue because these are like bubbles. And you can use your water brush marker again. And I'm just going to color half here. And then I'm going to take the color off, and you can just blend this out some more. Not sure which is the and you can go right across. Get out a little bit more if you want. And then it creates the color just on one side of a bubble. So it just gives you that dimension. So that's sort of starting with water, and then you can do more, and then remove the ink, and just blend it across. So it's a very, very subtle shading. Do that again. Maybe it's need it to be a little darker for you to see. And then I'm just taking it off my watercolor or water brush, and then I can spread it out. All right, so we had plain coloring just with the brush tip. Then we added water and then spread or colored with the brush tip. And then we sort of added ink from our mat and our water brush and just spread it across so you got a gradient. And now we're going to blend some colors. So you can blend the markers while, okay, so I'm gonna make sure I've got the colors I want. So I'm gonna start with the darker color and then maybe blend with a lighter pink. These two I'm gonna use. So I'm going to start, so this is, there's no water on my paper, and then I'm going to just blend. Now, I probably could have used a different color, but I'm gonna add maybe now a little bit of yellow. So you can, well, it's hard to see, it's pretty far away. You can see how the colors will blend. So that's just blending dry. Then you can also add water. Looks a little blue again, I didn't clean my tip. And so again, I'm gonna start with the darker color, but again, there's water now. And now I'm gonna add the lighter color. And with the water, it tends to blend easier. And now I'm just gonna add a little bit of yellow. And then I'm gonna show you. So you can see with the water, I think the blending wasn't better. It just blended better. But you can see how, well, maybe you didn't, but the colors get absorbed, and as it dries, it's lighter. It gets lighter. Now I can feel on the bottom of my paper that these areas, well, not this one so much, but these are dry. So I can go back and do different techniques with the ink that's already there because it can be reactivated with water. So I'm just going to finish this coloring here. All right. So what next do I want to do? I think those are the basic techniques. Now we can fill in or color another design. So maybe what I'm going to do is take a new stamp design here. And this is the watercolor paper, the Strathmore watercolor paper that I haven't really colored with, only did the little sample. Clean my mats so that I can have use other colors. All right, so now we're gonna start using some of the techniques to color in this image. And I'm gonna get my picture so that it's handy and everybody can see it. Whoa, they work away. So it's this image here. So it does use some pinks, and I'm gonna choose a couple of light pinks and a purple maybe. So these are the ones I'm going to choose, just so you have an idea. And we're going to use some green as well. It's kind of nice to put your all your markers together because they have different colors from the different packages. And I haven't really used that many um, yet. You can just, I mean, we're coloring mainly flowers. So the colors are greens and I like pinks and oranges. But if you're using it for other stamps, then you use the other colors, the earthy colors. So I'm going to start with this color, green. And now this is fairly dark. And I can tell that this paper absorbs the color very easily. But again, it's going to lighten as it dries. So I'm just going to color a few things here. So in this little area, I'm going to bring it up. I just colored around the base. And now I'm going to add a little bit of water and spread that color. And I'm going to add some water to this piece too. And now you can see that this flower has many petals. So I'm going to add, actually, I think I'm going to do it, I'm going to just do a light pink, and then we can add darker color to it. Okay. And you can see, oh, I'm off this. So that's the kind of color I'm going to get. Do it a little bit further up here. Now I'm gonna wet my paper a little bit because I just want this to be very light because I can always add more. Just wanted to add a little bit of water. I do have a cup of water to add. I'm just going to do the two outside. this in here. It is easier if you start at the base and then move up. All right. So if you look at this image here, the tips are very light, and then the base is dark. So that's why I started with a very light color, and now I can add more color to the base. And whether I do that by putting some more color on my mat and then adding it to my design, or I can also add directly to the design. Now this paper was already a little bit wet from adding the previous color. So I can spread it out a little bit, or I can let it dry and then add more color. But you can see how it's starting to see the shading. Now I don't know, maybe you can see here too how the stem, I added a little bit of water and it did mute the color. I mean, it dried, and so it's going to mute it a little bit. But maybe we'll work on the stem a little bit more while I wait for the petals to dry. I'm gonna add a little bit of a brighter green to the stem area, and then I'm gonna add some color to the leaves here. I think I'm going to add a little bit with the water brush too. When I was making some samples, I would work on it one day, and then I would see it the next day, and then you can still add more color, change the colors, because the watercolor paper allows you to lift color or add color or add shading. So I can understand how it took the, like, masters of painting or whatever to create their masterpieces, because you constantly think about things and change it. Okay, June says, "Can you just use the markers?" Yes. So you can just color with the markers. June arrived a little bit late, but, I'll just go back to this example here. And this petal here used just the marker. and then this petal, which is a little bit lighter, use some water. And then on this area, I mixed or blended the markers on this side without water and here with some water. So you can just use them, but the idea is that they are water-based markers, and so the technique is more a watercolor type technique, and I'm no it's just I've just been learning this week. I dabbled with watercolor paper and things before, but so I just kinda did this leaf here, and now yes, you can touch it, it is getting drier. So maybe we'll do the other leaf here. Now you can mix and match your colors of green. I'm gonna add another color here. The lids are tight, so now I just blended the 2 colors, and now I'm just gonna take a little bit of water and blend them together. That's probably a little too much water. You don't want it's a fine I mean, I spread some water on my mat and used it, but it was too much. The water brushes are pretty good for getting the sort of right amount of water. All right, so let's go back to our petals here, and I'm want to choose another color to add to blend a little, and I'm just gonna use the water brush again, and add some shading here. You can see well, maybe it's difficult for you to see, but if I add water to a previous colored area, it will turn lighter because it will lift some of the color. So you do that's good in one way and not so good if you didn't want it lighter. But it allows you to lift color and correct, you know, not really errors, but maybe you can change your colors. You can see it's still actually a little bit wet. That's where the patience comes in. So on this side here, lower to me, has more water on it. So I'm gonna go to the other side and add a little bit more color. And now I might take just trying to find which one I was using. I guess this one. And now I'm just using my markers without water, and you can blend some of the color out. So this side here, where I used more water, you can tell is much lighter. And then this side which was allowed to dry a little bit longer, you can see how the colors are being shaded. So now I need a little bit of color to set this tip here. I'm going to do the top petals. So I'm gonna put some more of the color down on my mat because I just want, again, the muted color initially. A little too much water. I think it's the paper because I was working all the time with different paper. So you do get used to whatever watercolor paper you have. I'm just gonna blend this out again. I can tell my paper is now quite wet. I'm gonna blend with this other color marker. And now I think I'm going to go do this area. So I'm making this bud. And again, if you're not happy with the colors, you can lift them. This paper absorbs the water, and you can see it sort of bleeds outside the line. So now I'm just taking a little bit of the color from my mat to blend a little bit. But this is quite saturated now. So it does need to dry because then the colors might change a little bit, and then I can modify it again. So June also said, so you blend while the first color is still wet. You can, but you can also wait for it to dry. There's different techniques. Um, I've been blending while it's still wet because I think that gives you the best sort of blending. But you can do it while it's still wet. It does depend on your paper. So I'm gonna leave this now because it's quite wet, and if I add anything to it, it's probably not gonna work the way I want it. So now so we colored a stamp design. So you do need to practice a little bit. I mean, every time I do it, I learn more things. But what I also wanted to show you today is coloring some die cuts. So I'm gonna swap this out, and oh, it's pretty hard to see this. So what I did was I die cut some, these are called fresh flowers. They're craftables from Marianne. There are still some on the website. CR1529 is a number, and at the end, I'll put the numbers up for you. So to me, this is a hollyhock, and this looks like an echinacea, or sunflower. And I'm just going to color these with the markers and with some different techniques too, using the same kind of techniques. I'm first of all going to color the stem because this is going to allow you to see it easier for sure. And I'm going to choose a couple of greens. I see there's now these this die does allow you to emboss. So there are some little embossed areas in the middle of the flowers. And I'm going to just color the bottom of the flower. And I'm gonna go over it to give a little bit of different shading. So these markers are really nice to color die cuts too. So I'm gonna just hold this up so you can see in a little bit. And now I'm going to add some pink to it. Now I'm going to, I think, use the same. Now this looks like a really dark reddy pink, pinky red, really. But when I use a fair amount of water, it becomes a very light pink. Now I'm just coloring these just to add color to them, and then I can add some shading after. Actually, I think I might be this different. I like lighter shades, but because we can add color right from the marker too. And the more you go over it, the more color you're adding. And so you can vary the shading as well. I'm gonna add a little more. Now these are wet, so I can add like a little drop, and that will probably blend out, or I can help it. tend to like to use my water brush to add the color because, yeah, I can always add more, I guess, versus coloring it and then it's really dark. I guess I could choose a lighter color to begin with, and then so I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna add some more colors to the stem, and I'll just show you. It's pretty light. So I used a light color green. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a darker color. And again, I do have some on my mat here. I could just start with that and just so I'm just kind of blending the colors just to give it a richer look. And I'm gonna just do a few stem here too. And then I can choose to go right in. Now I could do this with my marker, I guess. Go right in the veins that are cut into the die cut, and then we can blend it a little. So in a way, it helps you know where to add some darker colors because it's in the die cut and it's made to look like them. And again, this is all gonna turn lighter as it dries. So I'm going to show you. I'm just looking for another die cut I have. Oh, here we go. So this was one I had done earlier. So it's a little bit brighter, and this is more muted. Probably use different markers. Um, gonna just add. I used a brighter pink, I think, but we can add just. Oops. You can also mix the colors. So if you want a little more muted color, you can do that. So say you've got a bright green and you want to make it a more muted color green, you can do that by mixing the colors. Now, basically, you choose a color from the opposite side of the color wheel. So we're gonna do this. This is a bright green, and in order to make it a more muted green, you actually need like a red. They're on the opposite sides of the color wheel. Now I don't have one in front of me, but I'm gonna show you. So this was the green we used. I'm gonna put it up here. And then if I mix a little bit of the red with the green, it's a lighter green. Mix it a little bit more. But it's hard to see, but it is more subtle. So you can do that with some of the bright colors if you want to change them a little bit. If you don't have the exact color you want. And then the other thing I wanted to show you, so I've got these 2 hollyhocks, and I'm just gonna move them aside, is that you can just create some shading. So this is a heart die cut because I was thinking what I would do is add a heart, the die cuts on top of the heart, or I'll layer them, and I can put that on a card. But then I thought, well, instead of doing the pink, I'm going to do some blue. So I'll show you how to do it with some blue. So for this, I'm going to use the blue that we used at the beginning demo. And I'm just gonna squeeze a little bit of water onto my mat because I just want it very subtle. And it's almost like a wash. It's probably too much now. You can just see now the heart is die cut from watercolor paper, but you can see how you could create sky if you have, like, tree stamps or something, and you want to create a scene, you can create a wash that's going to look like sky. And that's why I think we kinda need to have a part 2 because I think there's a lot you can do in creating scenes with your stamps. So not just coloring in the design, but using it to create the background and the sky and perhaps a lake view. So now I can put this on my blue heart and it'll look like the sky. So that was I wanted to show you, and this was the dry pink heart. Now I think this is going to look darker once it dries versus light. You can kinda see. Now I could go all the way across and then if I wanted to create more of a gradient, I'm just gonna add a little more color, and I can pick this up with some and just add it to the one side. And again, that was my sort of idea for a card and then have something decorating around it as well. All right. So let's go back to uh, this design. It's still wet, but the colors are actually not too bad. I just want to write about this. So with these techniques, you can kind of have a few projects on the go at the same time and move from one to the other because then you're going to let it dry and not be impatient and get mixed, like mess it up because you didn't wait long enough. Um, maybe gonna add a little purple in here. And it's hard for you to see the shading because of the cameras and stuff. Not sure like that, but can you use the heat tool to dry? Yes, you could. I didn't set mine up, so you can always choose different colors or just add different layers of the same color to create a darker color, I guess. And again, I'm not the greatest color to know all the color combinations, but it's just a matter of playing. So let's I did one other. Okay. While we're waiting for that to dry a little bit more, here's another tulip that I thought we could play with. And this one is this tulip here. So this tulip sort of is a mix of pinky red and yellow. And the way they've shaded it, you can see each of the petals. I'm not sure I'm going to do a good job on that one, but we can try. And so this is one of the samples. I'll show you the sample I've been playing with this week. Every time I look at it, I think, "Oh, I should do something else." So this was my design. And what I did was I added the shading to the bud because if you look at the example, they added some green, but mine, if it's far enough away, it's okay. But if it's close up, I it bled a little bit around the outside edge. But I figured I could always cut that out, and then you wouldn't see that it bled a little bit. All right, so let's try this one, and I'm going to start. Oh, I've got to get my picture. I think I'm gonna start here. And then this on the side too. I'm going to just blend with my markers. These are vibrant colors. Deanna says, "Oh, they're such vibrant colors," and they are. But again, you can make subtle if you want. Now in the example, it has some yellow. Now the yellows I find are very vibrant, so I'm going to start with the little yellow, adding with my water brush because I don't want it quite so vibrant, and I can always add more color. Maybe I should have added a brown, or maybe it needs to be a little orange in there. I think I'm gonna add just a shade of this is kind of a brown orange. We'll try it. Mm, a little bit on that top up here again. I think I've got to blend a few more colors there. I think a little bit on here. You can always go off the side and see if you got the right combination. I need a little bit more of darkish color here. I might have to take a little bit of that away. So because this is pretty vibrant in there, if I wanted to remove a little bit of the color, then I can add some water. It's gonna blend it a little bit. Well, that's gonna remove some. You can see it kind of picks it up, or I can blot it off. So I can add more water, and then I can take a tissue and just blot it, and that will take away some of the color. It's not too bad. Not quite as nice of shading. Oh, but you can see now I've got that white area because I blotted it off, which is fine because I can always go back and add a little more color, but I'm gonna wait until that dries. So, maybe going back to this design, we'll let that one dry a little bit. I'm not very happy with doesn't look too bad on the screen, but it doesn't look so great, in real life here. So I'm just going to blend out some of these colors. I'm just gonna use the water brush, and then I think I'm going to have to let it dry again. So that's the nice thing that you can just keep modifying things until you're really happy with your design, but it does take some practice. You can see that it's already more muted. Now this is the Strathmore paper, which moves the water moves a lot. So I was playing around with the watercolor paper where it didn't move as much. So you really do need to get used to the paper that you happen to have. I don't think one's better than another. I think you just have to get used to it. I think the watercolor paper where the water doesn't move quite as much is probably more forgiving for your designs. So I was starting this tulip design. So we can add a little color to this one. So this one's dry now, and I'll just show you the picture again. So I had sort of washed, did a pink wash, and then had some darker colors. And now I'm gonna add some more darker color to the base. And I just want to focus in the center area where it's lighter on the outsides. Because if you look at the sample here, it's light on the outside, which allows it to look curved, like give it dimension. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of orange to this now. And then I'll have to add some more colors. All right, and then I thought, I mean, that's kind of the technique. You do need to play with things a little bit, but you do get a lovely watercolor effect. This is another sample I made. This is the tulips with the bud. This is the one we worked on today. And then I just want to look at the die cuts again, see if they've dried a little bit. Okay, so there's the sky washed part, and that's the pink one. And then here come our holly, and this was the one I had done earlier. So similar. And then I never did do the echinacea, but I did do, I can show you, I did one before. It wasn't it's very bright pink. So play with the markers on your die cuts, on your stamps, use them to color your stamps. Try different watercolor papers if you have a variety of watercolor papers, or just use whatever you do have. And then what I'm going to do is turn some of these designs into cards. And then I think in part two, I want to focus on sort of scenes and using your brush markers to create backgrounds. So that's what I want to play with. And I'd be happy to share that with you. And hopefully that will be in March. I'm thinking beginning of March, which gives me a month to play with the summer. And then we can revisit some of the techniques and then try to make some scenes. So I hope you learned a few things today. I'm not the expert on watercoloring and with the markers. However, we did create some designs, and I hopefully will have some more techniques for you in about a month. So we'll advertise it once we have the date set, and then hopefully you can join me. But in the meantime, if you wanted to purchase any of the stamps that we used that you thought you liked, I'm going to just put the, oh, I thought I had saved it, but I didn't save it. So I'll just go through it with you. These tulips, it's SL-ES stamp 59. And then this combination, so it's all of these stamps here. That's the main one that we use for this. That's SL-ES stamp 119. this stamp set that we if you like this, it has a variety of bubbles and everything, so maybe you like those. This is the stamp we used at the beginning to show the different techniques. That's SL-EF dash stamp 118. And then if you like the die cuts, that's CR 1529. And that includes the echinacea, the hollyhocks. It does have a iris and a dandelion hawk and a little greenery. I yes, I do have them here. I just don't. It has this sort of it's greenery. Um, so that's the number for that. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a great rest of the weekend. And we'll see you again in March. Thanks for coming, everybody. Bye bye.